Welcome to Happy Times and Places. I, Toby Haydoke, am a sucker for all things Doctor Who, so I've asked a friend to follow me up the stairs and tell me the best bits of a Doctor Who story that they have chosen. But before they tell me, I have to see if I can guess what those favourite things are.
Hello, I'm Iszi Lawrence. I'm a comedian, I am a history presenter, and I also write children's books, so if you can have a look behind me, The Unstoppable Letty Peg, it's out now. It's very good, it's very nice, you should get it. It's about suffragettes beating up policemen, but for kids, so the violence is real. Anyway, lovely to meet you guys. I also do a podcast called Terrible Lizards, which is all about dinosaurs. If you're a bit nerdy, you'll like that as well. And I'm not accusing of being nerdy, but yeah, if you go to izzy.com, you'll find me. Toby asked me to do this, and he asked me to pick an episode. And to be honest, I thought what rekindles my love for Doctor Who, because I'd watched a little bit, on old VHS tapes that had been recorded off the television, and when I was a kid. But really, what started me off, I'm afraid, was the new Doctor, which was Christopher Eccleston, who is pretty much still my favourite. And Christopher Eccleston is my favourite mainly because of this episode. No, it's not Run for Your Life. It's none of that. It is Dalek. Because in Dalek, he loses his shit. Anyway, it's amazing. So what I want you to do is just to enjoy it as much as I did. And to me, it really hit home because guess what? I was about the same age as Rose Tyler is in this when I first watched it on the TV in my little student flat. So I want you to sit back, relax, enjoy. And and I will tell Toby what particularly I look out for when studying this epic episode when one Dalek is more terrifying than 100,000.
Well, I hope, like me, you're grinning because of Izzy's introduction. I love her energy. Her doing this was a suggestion of actually a listener, Chris Arkle, who said, why don't you try Izzy? Now I know Izzy, she's a Facebook friend of mine, but like many Facebook friends of mine, I've met her twice. I gigged with her once, and I bumped into her once at Piccadilly Station. And I'm pretty sure that's the only 2 times our paths have crossed. So I probably haven't seen her in a decade or so. But this modern world, people are only a keyboard away, which is odd, isn't it? And one of the positives of this modern world in which we live. But because I haven't seen her for ages, I love that video. It filled me through with so much joy. I think especially as a bloke, seeing a sort of a female geek, as it were, who is funny and enthusiastic and has such a sort of sparky energy. I love her energy. And is the sort of person I think we were conditioned to believe didn't exist, you know what I mean? And that this whole, I think, particularly, I know there were female Doctor Who fans before, I'm not excluding them, but I think this whole new, post-2005 Doctor Who has coincided with a world where perhaps social conditioning is less restrictive of people, and it means that, being addicted to Doctor Who or having things to say about Doctor Who is not just the preserve of blokes of a certain age and particularly of a certain demographic, which of course means that it continues to be relevant. Its relevance goes into different places as is expressed by different receivers in different ways, and it means that it will continue to be relevant and it will live on. So I'm delighted, because I don't think I've ever really had a conversation with Izzy about Doctor Who. So, and I'm glad she's doing so brilliantly well as well, which is lovely. And she's got some things to say about Dalek. Now, I've brought a notebook because, when I'm watching classic series Who, I just have to choose one thing per episode. But when I get to the end of this 42 minutes, I'll have had to have chosen 5 things, which Izzy has also done. And I don't want to be struggling at the end, because as you could tell, it's already quite late at night, to choose 5 things and choose bad ones, which I have been known to do in the past. So without further ado, I am watching on a thing called an iPlayer, which is a very newfangled thing, which means you can watch any television on your television without having to get a a disc or a cassette and putting it into another machine. So this is, I only have to use even one remote control, which is delightful. So, I might have to just turn the volume down slightly for your benefit. Alexa, volume 4. Let's see what happens there. It may be a bit louder, may need to turn it down slightly. It as in the program, not it as in Alexa, who I think I will refer to as a she. It's a one-word story. It is Dalek. Finding 5 things to say about this should be relatively straightforward. I remember when this was new. It is now horrifyingly over 15 years old. Right. Let's play in 3, 2, 1. Now, this Doctor Who couldn't have been more exciting at this time. And, of course, the genesis of this was that for a while, the Daleks were not going to appear in a new Doctor Who, as this was then. And I remember not being that worried, because it was just the fact that Doctor Who was back. It was only then when they were taken away and then suddenly they were back that I actually was reminded what a big deal the Daleks are. And it's because one of my earliest memories is Destiny of the Daleks, but then we didn't see the Daleks till Resurrection. And that, so I only have 4 Dalek stories in living memory. But they are a big deal. And they sell so much more than all the others on DVD. The general public like the Daleks. And actually, because this was the sort of almost the mid-season restart. And there's the first Cyberman we see in New Who, and I love that design. It's a sort of revenge invasion combo, and that for an old school fan to have as a little present at the start of this was absolutely lovely. It was a beautiful touch, and the fact that it's not just a cursory, you could see a Cyberman in the background. They actually make use of the fact that it's got teardrops and you have that close up while the Doctor's being wistful, and the level of detail in these episodes I think is extraordinary, and as a fan was so welcome. I mean, look at that wide shot of the museum. And actually, it's not one of the most dramatic pre-titles, actually. So it's quite a low-key start to what is the mid-season kickstart. So, we've had the first night out of the way. We've had the present day, the future, the past, the first return to Earth and 2-parter. And now it's like, okay, because Russell T Davies is very clever, how do we make sure that people don't think it's business as usual? Well, let's bring the Daleks back. In fact, let's bring one Dalek back. And it's, how stark is that? Dalek, just the one. Stroke of genius. And Rob Shearman, of course, had been a writer who'd done so much for Big Finish, that it was quite exciting news that one of Big Finish's one of the people who produced the Big Finish stuff that people really talked about was now doing the TV show, and as it turns out, his only episode of TV Doctor Who. Oh, how could he have flourished if he'd done more? And now that actor, Stephen Breckingham, there gets top billing because he's the first person to speak. I will do a podcast on the credits order of new series Who, because it does sometimes do an order of appearance and sometimes not. But he's an American actor, as is Corey Johnson here. Anna Louise Plowman is from New Zealand, I think. And I do remember a couple of fans on forums at the time saying she says the word helipad wrong. And I think had this story been done a year later, Anna Louise Plowman convinces me as an American, and she's done a lot on American TV, but I'm not going to argue with the American viewers. I'm going to listen out for how she says helipad. Did you say helipad? Did she say helipad? Nigel Whitney there is a Canadian actor that plays a lot of Americans on TV. But I think had this been done a year later, you'd have got a big name to play Corey Johnson's part here. Corey Johnson is a UK-based American actor who sort of crops up in a lot of movies filmed here that needed American. There's a good niche and there's a good cabal of UK based American actors who crop up in movies. So you can sustain a good career, and he does guest parts on British television as well. And he's fine. And I know I think they tried for Larry Hagman, and I think they tried for Michael Brandon, who crops up later, not for very long. But Larry Hagman has since died, hasn't he? J.R. Ewing from Dallas, that would have been a big headline grabber. I mean, the fact is that the Dalek is the headline grabber, but I still think if this had been a year later, they could have probably pushed the boat out and got a sort of headline grabbing American star and flown somebody over. We were so close to getting Dennis Hopper, weren't we? But that's partially because he was here for Voyage of the Damned. Dennis Hopper in Doctor Who. I forget how good Billie Piper is. She's gonna smack you if you keep calling her she. And Bruno Langley had left Coronation Street. And again, interesting, because Coronation Street was what everybody else watched. Having somebody recognisable from a mainstream popular show doing the Doctor Who thing did lend it a bit of credibility, even though I'm not a massive fan of Adam. You're not supposed to be a massive fan of Adam. He's supposed to be a character with shortcomings. But seeing him running down the corridors when he was an actor you've been used to seeing on the cobbles in an everyday drama, as it were, helped to ground this new sci-fi show in the recognisable world. So the casting wasn't just about, getting stars that the press would talk about, obviously getting the right people for the job who could play the part in the way that the writers and directors and producers envisaged, but also it's helping to enable this strange show to infiltrate the landscape of popular culture, which was going to have to reassimilate Doctor Who because it had been outside of it and actually viewed somewhat askance. So it's very there's a lot of very clever planning that has gone into a lot of this and a lot of things, and I don't know how conscious that was, but it's all stuff that helped tip the balance in favour of the show. This is beautiful. This, I mean, we'd seen a bit of this because it had been on the Jonathan Ross show had a series of clips, and there'd been a few clips. Oh, and obviously the next time on. But look, to reveal the Dalek just with that little light, and then of course because the ears light up when they speak. I know they're not ears. When they're where the ears are, like Dalek ears. That is magnificent. That is as good a reveal for. There's not a rule book, is there, for bringing back an iconic monster that hasn't been on the screen for God knows how many years in a program that was a joke and that are a bit of a cliche because they can't climb the stairs, but that also need to be introduced for a new generation whilst keeping the same design that they had in the original series, so as not to be a complete reimagining. There's a whole set of circumstances there, and they get every one of them right. I mean, I know that one of the things that they'd had to do was not only introduce the Dalek to a new generation of viewers, whilst not disappointing the old generation, is, well, I don't know if they had to, but I know that Rob has said that he asked his wife what all the worst things about the Daleks were. They can't climb stairs, what's that sucker for? And to make a virtue of those and to overcome those. So somebody gets their face sucked off with the suffer. They say you can't climb the stairs, it climbs the stairs. So basically anything that the viewer's going, yeah, the Daleks aren't all that, because they're then going to go, OMG, as people do in the modern day. The POV of the Dalek is great. Eccleston is superb. This is a brilliant piece of acting. The sort of battle-scarred, guilty. Yeah, and look at the sort of out of focus Dalek in the back. Dead. Yeah. So good, so good. Having this Doctor as a sort of battle-scarred person who's lost, and having him as the last of the Time Lords, again, a fantastic trip. A couple of things to hang his character off that stop him being an omniscient wiseacre, that stop him being just this lightweight, jokey guy, but give him the weight as well. And the Dalek is sad, and Nicholas Briggs, actually, isn't that a wonderful story of a person who's a fan, who's a performer, who's an actor, who is also a voice synthesizer geek because he loves the Daleks. So when he does what you've got to do in this business and you make your own work, and what he did with Jason and Gary and all the Big Finish people, set up your company and make the show that you love because it's not on anymore. You play the Daleks because you know the Daleks, because you've studied them, and he can tell you the setting of each vocoder bit for each machine for each era. So becomes the guy who does the Daleks for Big Finish, his own company. So when they come to do it, Russell T Davies goes, well, there's a guy who could do the Daleks. He's got to do them in the series. Wonderful. Well, nice that, again, the new series doesn't cut itself off from the people who've been, keeping the flame burning, albeit to a smaller audience, but it doesn't matter. A lot of people would have gone, we will distance ourselves from them because we're in charge now, and I'm sorry, but you're not important. In order to plough their own farrow and buff up their own importance. But Russell T Davies is secure enough to go, no, actually, these people are important. We're important in a different way and on a different landscape and on a different canvas. But we're not going to deny the undoubted skill that goes into this stuff and what these people have done. And I think that's really nice, and that's not to be taken for granted. And it actually takes a sort of a lack of ego, in a way, from Russell T Davies to have not sort of just gone, we don't need any of that. Actually, this is ours. Because I think a lot of people would have gone, yeah, I mean, there were these audio things, but we're the people bringing Doctor Who back, and they're nothing. I think you'd be surprised how uncommon Russell T Davies's very generous and giving approaches in that way. Oh, I like the fact that Adam has a cup of coffee. I like things that make Doctor Who seem real. I mean, nobody's even chosen Mind Warp yet, but Crozier having his sip of coffee is definitely my favourite bit of that episode. Nobody likes a boy genius, do they? I mean, he does this well. There's bits that I don't like in some of their dynamic. But actually, no, this scene's really nice. It works. Yeah, I don't like that bit. I don't like that bit. But I think you're sort of supposed not to like it. Are you? I don't know. But nobody likes a boy genius. Did Adric die for nothing? But of course, this is deliberate because of what happens in the next story. He's the companion who couldn't. But actually, these are like people from a modern program, and Doctor Who still had, Doctor Who still to me was so entrenched in what it was, and these sorts of characters were great for bringing it into the modern world, and Billie Piper is so important to that. And they do lots of herring down corridors later. That's very exciting. And the fact that it's America, I think, is really good. Because, again, I think we imagine a lot of Doctor Who happening with stuffy British politicians, and it's usually filled with British accents, and the science fiction that was big and important in it, and that dwarfed ours because it had more money, was always the American stuff. So it always seemed a cut above, even just if it was in terms of spectacle and money rather than anything else. But it was the one that it was the type of sci-fi that one was intimidated by. God, imagine what we could do if we had that sort of budget. So I think the fact that it's set in America and has generally genuine American voices in it really helps to give it a sort of epic grandeur as well. And I sort of like the Doctor's. I like what the Doctor does when you have a man whose kingdom of all he surveys Van Statten, and the Doctor essentially just goes, in the grand scheme of things, you're nothing. But that doesn't mean that he's not dangerous to the Doctor. And this is a great showcase for what Eccleston brings to the Doctor. Not only the battle scarredness, but the intensity, the fact that he's sort of above all of this stuff that's getting in his way, even as he's trussed up and being X-rayed, is standing between him and the bigger picture. And that's what often happens with disasters, is that it's little arseholes like Van Statten, obsessed with their own fiefdoms, that they fail to realise how actually extremely unimportant they are, and how their selfishness can facilitate far worse things. And I think that deals with this very nicely. And I do like all the different comparisons between what the Dalek represents and what we are, because I've just been doing Inferno, funnily enough, and what could we be under slightly different circumstances. How many similarities do we actually have with, if we strip away the staccato voice and the pepper pot silhouette and all of that, just how different are we from the Daleks, and it, sometimes the similarities are frightening. And this episode goes off at a lick, and of course, I actually remember when this was on, Chris Moyles, BBC Radio 1 DJ, very popular, saying, "Oh, the new series of Doctor Who's been brilliant, hasn't it? Apart from the one with a Dalek that got feelings." And you go, "Oh no, you've misunderstood it. You have mistaken this for being that subgenre like the Iborg one, where of the Next Generation, which is an excellent episode, of course. But when something becomes excellent, it can then become a cliche. But this is not a story where the Dalek learns to be like us, and that's sad because it's a killing creature who has the potential to be one of us, and that's the tragedy, because he will never be allowed to be us. This turns that on its head. This is much cleverer. This is a Dalek that becomes like us and experiences feelings that we feel, but you misunderstand the text if you then go, and so it's the Dalek learning to be human. It's the Dalek experiencing love and kinship and all these feelings that we say are good, that separate us from the Daleks, that make us better. So the cliche would be to go, the Dalek gets that, and it's sad because the Dalek gets a glimpse of a better life. No, the Dalek experiences all those things we like and finds them disgusting. And this is poison, this is sickness. Now that is so very clever. I think that message was initially on first viewing by many sort of not quite understood. In fact, I remember I didn't know Rob at the time. I've since got to know him very well. He did a I think a live Q&A on Gallifrey Base, or Gallifrey 1 as was. Oh, brilliant! You see. Yeah, take the sucker. And you actually see his face get squashed. They obviously manipulate the picture. And that is genius. And Nigel Whitney was in quite a lot at the time. He actually did a thing with me on Radio 4 Extra, but we never actually met. An archive hour thing where he did some voice work on a thing I presented about the golden age of American radio. So we've been in the same thing without actually having met. And I like the way John Schwab goes, that's got a billion combinations. It's just there's something very natural about having real American voices in it, and the way that they speak in a way that sometimes English actors doing American don't. And I like the nature of all of that. So what was I saying about Rob? Oh yeah, and somebody at this Gallifrey base thing, I was naive. I thought the internet talking about Doctor Who people would just be nice, and somebody put something like soppy Dalek sucked or something. It wasn't soppy, but it was something like that, and it was definitely sucked. And I thought, so somebody's gone to the trouble of going on this live chat with Rob and just said a rude thing. And I've since met Rob, and he's quite a few sort of people have said to him, "Yeah, I hated that one. It was terrible." But bless him, I'm sure not as many have said it as he likes to say, because he likes telling stories where everything's a disaster. If he writes his own autobiography, it will definitely be full of awkward encounters and disastrous moments, because those are the stories he likes to tell about himself. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy, brilliant writer. And I got to know him after this just because we both did an event together, and I was amazed that he would even talk to me. And we actually, ended up becoming good friends. We've written some books together and should be writing some more. So that's very clever. The Dalek has now managed to regenerate itself, although I quite liked it when it was a bit knackered. And I was worried when I saw the new design, because the big ears, I know they're not ears, were reminiscent of the ones in the films, which I didn't actually like the big ears of the ones in the films. But they really work on this tank-like thing, and I love this. This is amazing, and you see the skeleton, which is a callback to Remembrance of the Daleks. But I think they had a bit of a clip of this they did a documentary voiced by David Tennant that I think showed that bit. Or it certainly showed a bit of so we knew what we were getting with the Dalek extermination effect, but seeing it in this battle was and the fact that the midsection, again, that's another I think that was the bit, actually, the hands on the gun. So I sort of knew that was coming, but within the whole context of that battle sequence, which is machine guns, always better than laser guns. He's so horrible. Vile man. But that battle, and of course the mission statement of this is go make one Dalek absolutely unstoppable, and mission accomplished already, and there's still loads of bits to come. It was such a thrill watching this. This was, and it's odd because Rob is not the writer you would expect to sort of write Die Hard, which is essentially what this is. You'd expect him to write one about, a sentient cabinet that has a whimsical plan to make everyone on Earth talk to milkshakes. I mean, that's how his imagination works. He's a strange, whimsical fellow. But he's adapts himself to this so brilliantly, and I think this is a terrific, note-perfect script, really. And again, brilliant. What a moment to just go, here's the thing. Now, even though it had happened in Remembrance of the Daleks, most people watching this hadn't seen and didn't care about that. Jaina Carpenter playing DiMaggio, I also love. I've interviewed her. She's ace. She's really kooky. She's really fun. She's in a band called Sweet Billy Pilgrim and another band called Piefinger. I have the Piefinger CD in my music collection. It's excellent. She's married to Julian Simpson, who directed the Gangers episodes. She's met Nicola Stevenson, who's an actress I know I've worked with a lot. And she's great. I really liked her. She was really good fun. And I'm a sucker for scenes where people say, "You go, I'll stay." It's sort of how I want to go. I mean, if and she looks terrified as well. Oh, she's dead. Oh, I think that's so sad. And she's great. I'm a big fan of Jaina Carpenter. I think she's top notch. She was introduced to me by Joe Lidster, who writes some big... Oh, God, I'm now sounding like the worst. I love... Stop apologising, Toby, I don't care. I love that population, 1 million, all dead. I love that. I love the... You go, I'll stay, hold you off. I love the, if this Dalek's let out, what is it, 1 million people are going to die. But the way that it's phrased, all of that action, adventure, movie sort of dialogue and stuff within Doctor Who floats my boat and it makes me punch the air. And I love it, especially that it's been written by Rob, who is a big bumbling teddy bear. Such a clever man, but such an idiosyncratic man. But he's morphed his particular skill set into this perfectly. So it shows, just as you shouldn't typecast actors, you shouldn't typecast writers. I would love, though, Rob to get his hands on some more TV episodes where he can do some of the stuff that is more of his particular style. And also this, of course, is based on an excellent, or has its, you can trace its lineage back to Jubilee, an excellent Big Finish with a prisoner Dalek, and a very satirical look at how we'd, turn the Daleks into merchandise and much-loved figures of fun, when as, of course, they're actually... And we as a nation, it's curious, isn't it? We do have an affection for the Daleks. We love the Daleks, and yet they're comfortable, and yet they're comfortable, homicidal, fascist killers. I wrote in something once that I've not done anything with at the moment, but that they're boiled eggs and soldiers with a final solution. There's something that we trace back to our childhood. They represent, the wolf under the bridge, the troll under the bridge in our childhood, the scare, the thing that scared us as our childhood. But therefore, as adults, they're slightly weirdly comforting because they're a thing, as they're still part of our cultural landscape. But we are now adults and we know that they're safe, and as a result, that makes us feel a little bit safer and more comfortable as adults. I think it's a curious paradox and a fascinating phenomenon, and I'm not sure there's much like it. And this is brilliant. Now it's because you've seen it hover. Now we're going to hover again and kill all of these people. And yes, machine guns really work. They have a sort of visceral immediacy, and the hot metal flying about is again, it's all pretty grim and grown up and sort of, not twee campy Doctor Who, as can sometimes be the image. And this is pretty horrible because one shot kills them all. But I think the speaking commander will get a slightly longer death because he's a hired actor, so he at least and he's also in he gets killed by the Daleks twice, doesn't he? Because he's in Daleks in Manhattan as well. Joe Montana. He's also got quite a big part in a Legionnaire, a Jean-Claude Van Damme film that I saw late and I once went, oh, it's that guy. But yeah, the lighting in this scene is fantastic. I sometimes find this first series Doctor a little bit murky on the eye, but the lighting here is absolutely... The helipad. So she says helipad. There's no parrot to the helipad. She says helipad. I see, yeah. That's not going to be one of my favourite things, Anna Louise Plowman. I actually forgot her name about a couple of years ago when I went, what? I know it's something, da-da. And I forgot the name of an actor that's in Doctor Who, which was terrible for me. I couldn't now do every actor that's been in Doctor Who. I could do everyone from the classic series and a lot of the extras, but I would be hard-pressed to give you a cast list to a story. I think post-RTD, maybe. I could probably just about do most of the RTD stories, just about. Not all of them. I'm thinking there's a couple. I don't know the name of some of the people who flash up very quickly in Army of Ghosts. I think I could do the newsreaders, but I don't think the lady who has the ecto shine or the lady with the t-shirt. So anyway, This I was cycling to a gig at the Comedy Store. So when would that have been? But it was definitely the store. I love this scene. And so I'd seen clips of this, especially in the Next Time trailer. So maybe it was the Sunday. It was the Sunday after World War III. And I was cycling to a gig. And so it had a bit of this, the bit where he spits, where he says, why don't you just die? Kill yourself. It's brilliant because it's great because it shows the Doctor as we very, very rarely see him. And of course, it then teaches him that this is wrong. And the spittle on Eccleston is great. Shows because you don't see spit on people actually very often on television. And often an actor would go, "Oh, can I do that again?" A bit of vanity, you know. And actually, a director might go, "Should we do it again, love? Because it's a bit." But actually, it's the making of it. We need more spit on television. But that face-off is great because the Doctor, you know, it says, doesn't it, you would make a good Dalek later. Or has it just said it? And this stuff is great because, he's sealing the vault off. That's just a thing, isn't it? It's just a beat, but it's a great way of adding a bit of drama. And of course, Rose gets cut off. So that's what's amazing about these episodes. Actually, when you watch them again, is that every 5 minutes there's a killer moment. We don't have episode endings like we used to in four-parters, but there are enough dramatic high points. They're so brilliantly structured that they're not allowed to meander. And actually the ante keeps being upped. And the Doctor has to, and it's not just an action thing. It's an action thing that has an emotional consequence for the Doctor. It's not enough that the bulkhead doors are closing. It's that he has to close them. And of course, you know, in your head, you sort of go, but they're not going to kill Rose. But actually, it's done with enough seriousness and intent and truth in the performances that you think, I think you buy it. You totally buy the situation. I'm sure I was saying something. Oh yeah, so I was cycling to the Comedy Store, and I was a bit blasé about it. So no, I was a bit of a tentative cycler, but I remember being especially tentative that night and going, "Oh God, I got to keep an eye out for the cars, Toby, because it would be typical if now that Doctor Who's back and it's brilliant and everybody loves it. It'd be typical if I got knocked off my bicycle and killed before the Daleks were back." And that made me go, "Oh God, so it is important that the Daleks come back." And that I was thinking in such terms, it would be a tragedy if I died now because there's still more Doctor Who greatness to come. And oh my God, I mean, the weeks used to pass by agonizingly slowly. I would watch the episodes again and again and again of New Who, but also, you know, the next edition of Doctor Who magazine, you know, with its tidbits and its snippets, and Russell T Davies was very good at, you know, feeding just enough out or doing enough things that would tantalize you. Each episode had a sort of headline, which was really, really clever. That's what's so clever about these early New Who's, is that every episode is the one with, you know, where there's something that makes you go, "Oh yeah, I've got to watch this one," because it wasn't like, "Oh yeah, well, there'll be this one, but then next week there's the one I really want to watch." There was something about every episode that had a headline, that had a grab, and this one, of course, is that simple word, Dalek. But of course, then what they do brilliantly is that they deal with the Daleks so well, and those shots of it being sort of cold, silent and impassive. Joe Ahern, excuse me, absolutely superb direction. He does the action well, he does the menace well, he does the emotion well, and she's so good. Oh, it truly is and of course, Rose is so effective to our understanding of Doctor Who when it comes back, that of course she is the Dalek. She is our conduit into this strange show. She is the casual viewer's conduit into this strange show, but she is also the Dalek's conduit into our world of emotion. Rose Tyler's still alive. I think we balked at the how much would you do for the woman you love. I think we're. I mean, I'm still wary of the Doctor having romance, just because. Well, it was important to me as a kid who was not particularly successful with romance, and didn't feel I had the equipment, and I mean by that confidence, a glib tongue, good looks, athleticism, all the things I associated with people being successful with members of the opposite sex. Doctor Who's a comfort is that they did have the things that I felt I did have, which was a bit of an outsider thing, and hairdryer, great line. And he's great doing this, because you don't really imagine Christopher Eccleston doing this very Troughton-esque Tom Bakery stuff of, getting loads of gubbins and chucking it about, and it really works. And he is slightly awkward and gangly about the way that he does it. And of course, this actually reverses a lot of the cliches too that we're going to come up. But yeah, so Doctor Who and romance. Every other program in the universe has romance, and I think I think sometimes when you can't do stuff, but they actually judge it all very well here. I mean, I definitely bawled my eyes out when Rose and the Doctor could no longer see each other, and I think there's just enough of it. Now, this is different, isn't it? Staten tortured me. Now, I've got a feeling on either the DVD release or the broadcast release that You Tortured Me is a different enunciation. I might do it as the I Think You'll Find, or I might just leave it in the air. As I say, these are not professions of expertise. These are reactions and celebrations. But I can't resist throwing in something I think might be a fact. She's extremely thin, Anna Louise Plum, isn't she? The Doctor toting a gun, which is, could. In the wrong hands be an absolutely awful thing, but it's actually the whole point is that he's not as Rose says shortly, he's not the one who's pointing a gun at me. And in fact, that's one of the many things the Doctor doesn't do. The Doctor doesn't tote a gun, in the same way that the Doctor doesn't fall in love, as it were. And those restrictions mean you have to do more interesting things with the character. But of course, that does mean if you do have the bit, and I think the bit in Resurrection's very good, where he has the gun and says, I'm going to go and kill Davros, because the Doctor so infrequently does that, it's a big, big moment. Because this comes off the back of the hair dryer joke, and he does the lock and load, it's perhaps not got the welly it might have. And also because the Doctor's only 6 episodes old. But, seeing the Doctor with a gun should be a bit sickening, really. But this is where I think this episode is very clever. But interestingly, though, it took the classic series a long, long time to show us the innards of a Dalek. I think it's a sign of today's television, where we go, oh no, we immediately have to see that. Imagine if we'd not seen that for 5 years. But of course, they didn't know they were going to last for as long as the show has lasted. But like when the Ice Warriors came back, they immediately go, the thing they never did in the original series? Let's do that with the thing. And you go, what? Why? Why so quick for the money shot? But this is brilliant, and I think this, I think this is very, very, very clever, because because you sometimes find yourself reacting to people that wind you up or upset you or have done bad things to you, sometimes they might say something innocuous and you behave. Your reaction is so over the top because of sort of the baggage that comes with it, and what you almost, not what they've just said, but what you can infer from what they've said if you want to look upon it badly. And not even people you don't like, sometimes people that you love. I reacted to something my partner said the other day, really wrongly, because I didn't think about it, not because of what she'd said, but because of some baggage that I'd attached to something else because of the day, and and it sort of brings out the worst in you, and you react in an egregious manner. And so the Dalek brings out the worst potentialities of the Doctor, and brilliantly makes him, as bad as the thing he fears. But what's so clever about this is that it would have been a legitimate sci-fi trope to have gone, I am a Dalek and I feel things and I understand what it's like to be human. Oh no, I can't cope with this. I'm so sad. Kill me. But he's not doing that. I don't think anyone's told the composer, and I think that's an issue with this scene, because the composer's going, isn't it sad? And I like Marigold's music a lot, but the soundtrack is going, isn't it sad that the Dalek is a bit human and we must be sad and we must cry? Whereas actually the Dalek's going, it's not sad that I'm human. It's going, these beautiful things, sunlight, furry animals, love, kinship, they're disgusting and they're horrible, and everything you are is poison to me. That is really clever. That is beyond the cliche. That even that relatively fresh cliche is turned on its head, and finds a use for Dalek bumps. Brilliant. So I think this is a really clever story, and I didn't quite pick up on this element of the ending at the end the first time, I think. And it's a great performance from Nicholas Briggs. It's a great performance from Billy Piper, who's just amazing. I love the fact that there are bits of roof on the floor as well. And, he's not the one pointing the gun at me is a great line, because it sort of shows how far the Doctor can be driven. This great hero. That's great. Great. And Eccleston is so good. So much. He doesn't move his face there, but saying so much. I like that of an actor when the expressions doesn't change, but you know what they're saying. Yes, and you're sort of wondering, how are they going to get rid of Van Statten, because he hasn't died yet. Which is a nice ending for him, except if he is the all powerful. Well, I suppose no, because I suppose they've seen all their mates die, so they're going to go, yeah, we will obey the woman who can't pronounce helipad. No, it's a nice bit of poetic justice, and Adam's gonna come and join the crew to show, brilliantly again, to show just how special Rose is that not everybody can just jump in the TARDIS. And I quite like the Doctor's sort of jealousy of Adam. What a nostalgic kick. Well, I'm glad I didn't get knocked off my bicycle before Dalek. I think this is a truly brilliant episode. I'm sorry if I've been a bit name droppy on it. Today, I've written a book with Rob Shearman, and I got introduced to Jenna Carpenter by Joe Lidster. I would have driven at my bicycle if I'd been listening to that. So I shall try and swerve if I see any of you coming while you're listening to that particular name dropping session. I didn't mean to do that. It just thrills me that I meet people from Doctor Who, and sometimes I meet them because of funny little coincidences, and I'm hooked up by people from disparate places. Oh, and here's Colin Proctor. I was so excited to see Colin because my acting career had started at this point, and I'd done a play, but I'd never been in the position where somebody I'd worked with as an actor had been in Doctor Who after I'd worked with them. I'd worked with people who'd been in Doctor Who before. Do you know what I mean? And that was exciting enough. But Colin, I was in Bentwith at the Loot at the Anna Maxwell Martin Loot at the Royal Exchange Theatre, and spent a lot heavy duty time with Colin, and then he's cast in the Long Game. Oh no, don't jump. So how do I stop you jumping from the credits? Do I do that? Yes, because it's a little box in the corner appears to go, let's take you away from the written word because that's too much for you. Look how slowly these are going. These were still seen as, I think, a little bit too quick and a little bit too small. Mike Tucker model unit, that's what we like. But this, compared to what you get now, is a meander. The campaign for real credit starts here. I adored that. And I've forgotten that I need to choose. I need to choose 5 things. I wrote down one thing, didn't I? Well, I think Spitty Christopher Eccleston. I mean, it's more than just saying a performance. I think it's the fact that, because I think he's always good. All the Doctors are always good. So it would be a bit boring if every time I went, the Doctor. But I think the war scarred. I'm meeting my nemesis. I'm going to tell them to die. Real, emotion. I'm pushed to the very limit of what the Doctor is, to the extent that I carry a gun. Eccleston performance is and all that. It's great. It's great. So Spitty Christopher Eccleston. I'm putting the Dalek reveal scene, just because of the lighting, because of the music, that simplistic music, and just the way that they introduce the Dalek. It's a new series to a lot of people. It's also an old series coming back to a lot of people, and this is a moment of great import, and they don't waste the opportunity without alienating newcomers. This says, guys, this is big, and people who've been coming with a certain weight of expectation go, I have not been let down by the way that they've resurrected my childhood. I think Die Hard. I think the fact that it is an action movie with Americans and machine guns and all of that, nearest city, whatever it was, how many population, all dead, all of that all, the fact it's a few people trapped in a building with doors that have to be sealed and all of that, I think make it very, very special. I think the Dalek, the way that they treat the thing about the way that they take every potential hokey thing about a Dalek and turn it into something lethal and terrifying, and that was a deliberate ploy, and it paid off supremely well. And I think 5, that idea, that genius idea, that the cliche is if you touch humanity, and so much of what Doctor Who is about, so much about Russell T Davies' Doctor Who is about, is the Doctor is even influenced by us because he's this lofty alien who's got his, sees the whole of time and space and everything in between, that sometimes our little small beautiful things, that what life is all about, are lost on him, and we help him to connect, or her now, to connect with those things. But actually this turns that on its head and says, oh yeah, there's all these brilliant things that are human, but for the Dalek, those are disgusting, and those are poison, and that's what makes them and us. That's what makes them so inimical to us. and that what makes them such a potent threat. So I do think that's slightly different to what I've said, the suckers and all of that sort of stuff. I think those are my 5 things. So the Daleks reveal, Spitty Christopher Eccleston, Die Hard, Dalek shortcomings turned into lethal things, and then the refusal to have the cliche of humanity making someone feel better, and in fact it makes the Dalek feel worse. So what has Izzy gone for? She's chosen 5 things.
The first thing that I really enjoy is Van Statten's arrival. Not just because you get, as the helicopter descends, did you hear it? Did you hear Bad Wolf? Did you? Oh, it's exciting. I was not expecting Bad Wolf to happen. I wasn't really familiar with what Russell T Davies was going to do with Doctor Who when it first came out, so the whole Bad Wolf thing was incredibly gripping when it was revealed, and you can hear as the helicopter comes down, it says Bad Wolf descending. So yes, that was incredibly exciting, but also what I really liked was a sort of slight reference to Die Hard when he's going through the corridors. It's kind of Die Hard meets West Wing, when they're all chatting together, and there's lots of lovely little jokes that happen there. Memphis, Minnesota, or whatever, somewhere beginning with M, memory wiping going on. There's a lot of character reveal here, including the English kid. And yeah, no, it's really, I just really like that little scene. And like I say, very West Wing. I mean, they're obviously, it doesn't look like it's filmed in Cardiff at all.
Oh, isn't she great? Yeah, although the Bad Wolf is a funny one, because it's in that flashback they go, oh, it's of course, these are all the occasions that Bad Wolf was said. Rose and the Doctor aren't actually there when the helicopter lands. So it's almost like the Bad Wolf, meme is being thread throughout the universe, and they sort of chuck it at Utah 2010 or whenever it is. There's what, oh, we missed. They're not there yet. Never mind. Go and spray paint it on a playground. Okay. Okay. Time. Or whoever. Right. Yeah, West Wing. I hadn't thought about that. She did mention Die Hard, though. Wonder if she'll mention Die Hard again. So that's 1 point to her, because I didn't say that. So here's her second one.
Now, I'm pretty sure Toby won't have picked this one up, but I really like this. And that is, somebody on the set design likes the same artist I do. Now, I'm not sure how to say this artist's name. She's Polish. It's Tamara de Lempicka. I'm not really sure how to say her name, but I absolutely adore her art. She was a bisexual artist in the 1920s, 1930s when she was big. She does Art Deco pieces, really sexy naked ladies, and she did a picture called A Portrait of a Man, which is of a man hunched over in a coat, skyscrapers behind him. Anybody who knows her recognises that painting, and for some reason it's of Van Statten. It's behind him in his office, and it's in loads of shots in this, so I don't really understand why that they chose this, but I love the fact that they did. Also, weirdly, right, if you're going to go proper, let's fangirl it out here. Okay, so if Van Statten, this is set in 2012, filmed, obviously, 2005, but set in 2012, the future, right? And what seems to be very odd is that he's got a portrait of him done by an artist who died in 1961. On a show about time travel, what's it trying to say? Probably nothing. It's probably just an artist going, I like this painting, I want to paint it again, but with his face on it. Maybe. But it's quite a sinister portrait as well. It kind of reveals a lot about the man, because he's really centre and forward, and there's a lot of richness behind him, but he's also a sinister character. And I like little details like that. So well done, set designers. I very much enjoyed that.
I love that. I mean, no, I never would have chosen that, because I had no idea. But I love that. This is the virtue of having fascinating people on your Facebook friends network, and that you encounter actually as a comic, because comedy is the makeup of the comedy world is hugely eclectic, and you meet people, and if you're wise, you learn from them, because you meet people from backgrounds you might not meet in sort of other workspaces. Let's fangle it out. I love that. I love that phraseology from Izzy there. Well, I didn't know about Tamara Flurble Durble, and it's 2012, isn't it? Not 2010. But that's a lovely fact. I was never going to get that, but that's a good one. I'll take it. wonder if she's going to say the line about the hairdryer. I nearly, by the way, said the line about the hairdryer, rather than 3 different things about the Dalek. But I just react how I react. Right, bit 3. I mean, I could overthink it, but...
Now, obviously, Toby's going to pick this because it is absolutely amazing. And that is the scene where the Doctor sees the Dalek, freaks out, realises the Dalek can't kill it, and then taunts it. And it's almost though this whole thing where Christopher Eccleston is circling the Dalek and yelling at it. And it's almost like it's his own interior monologue. It's the Doctor hating himself and his life, the fact that he's pretty much immortal and he has to deal with the loneliness of space and the futility of existence. And what's the point if you don't have any orders? And his realisation when he just turns to it and goes, I know what you should do. Exterminate. And it's one of the only times where Christopher Eccleston's, use of the gurning, the grin that he does with the cheeky ears, it really works here because he's mainly just given it his all in this scene. This is the scene where you're just realising how he goes from utterly terrified to utterly rageful to utterly demonic and evil, and it's brilliant because it gives this Doctor this huge arc and you just go, oh, this might be a bit grown up. Actually, I can watch this and tell people that I've watched it and not feel like a child.
Yes, I'm gonna give myself a point now. I think if it comes to a tie, I can't win on this point, because I sort of said the first Dalek scene and I highlighted the sort of Dalek's light turning on, but I did say the first Dalek scene because it's got, but then I didn't bang on about Eccleston's reaction, although I think I do choose spitty Christopher Eccleston as something else, but I think I'm allowed that because when I was talking about the first Dalek scene, I meant the whole sort of weight of import of that first encounter. And yes, she's right, and I didn't talk about it enough in the episode because I get sidetracked, don't I? About that first confrontation that is so very good, and works on lots of different levels thanks to the writing and to the performance. So I think I'm allowing myself a point for that.
Okay, the thing I really like about this episode is you get to see the whole Dalek, why they explain its design. Okay, so they explain the suckery thing. Not only can that suffocate you, but it can also, it's not there for unblocking sinks. And that isn't a whisk. No. Everything about this Dalek is explained. So I think we've seen, I'm pretty sure, I think it's in the 5 Doctors you see inside a Dalek as well. I'm pretty sure you see, or maybe it's just smothered in a towel or something. But we have seen what Daleks look like inside their casing before. But it's just nice the way it all opens up. Yes, it's very CGI, but that was impressive in 2005, right? You have to believe me. But the way it opens up and the balls on the outside going into a circle and everything being explained, it's just such a lovely. All of this machine makes sense. And it's a scary thing again because everything about its design is perfect. It's there for a reason. It's not there because they were trying to do something on the cheap in the 1960s. This is a scary monster. You should be afraid. Elevate.
Oh, very good. I don't think I'm allowed that, although I did. I talk about. I chose, the sucker killing but I was talking specifically about, the perception that could be had of the Daleks that's turned on its head, rather than what Iszi was talking about there, which is similar but different, about the rationalising of the very different bits of the iconic design, which is also extremely clever, but slightly different from mine. So I'm going to lose this one. Yeah, slightly related, but good points. Good points, well made. And interesting though, isn't it, seeing somebody younger sort of going, yeah, but CGI was fine in those days, so don't worry, kids from now. And I'm going, oh, it looks absolutely fine to me. I will be more about, yes, those model shots from 1985 are good. I mean, they were good for the time. So, kids from now. So isn't it funny? So I suspect even in 2041, people will be watching Doctor Who from 2021, and some shot that we've thought of being absolutely amazing, going, that was good for the time, It is true that the CGI and the bit where the Dalek hovered, you can see the joins, as it were, which you couldn't so much at the time, because actually what you were used to, was worse fringing and actual strings and blah, blah, blah. And it's amazing how your eye gets used to stuff, so that stuff that actually looked so amazing at the time, actually now in the context of what we see today and plopped in the middle of that, you go, oh, okay, that is found slightly wanting in areas. But as she says, at the time, that looked absolutely amazing, and it did. So isn't it funny? So never, nothing dates like the future, like televisual representations of the future, and what if you sit and watch telly made now and see, telly's the best, we're in a golden age, there will be elements of it that look different in 20 years' time. That is the curse of making anything. So never be too snidey about stuff from the olden days. I'm preaching to the converted, but if anybody's listening to this that hasn't watched every episode of Doctor Who, knows it backwards, well, that'll learn you. What's Izzy's final favourite bit? Can I get some? Can I emerge with some dignity?
Now, is this the first episode where we realise that the Doctor loves Rose? I'm trying to remember the first 1 to 5, because I think this is... I mean, it's implied by Rose's mum that he's a bit of a dish, but I think this is, the first time that Rose... she learns that the Doctor loves her because the Dalek says so. And he lets her out, along with the Dalek, which we've already worked out is unstoppable at this point, apart from the fact, obviously, it's got human inside it. It's got humans, it's tainted. I don't particularly like that plot point, but you kind of need it, because a tarnished Dalek is not a good Dalek, and not a happy Dalek. So, yeah, I think that's quite interesting. Is this the first time that we hear that the Doctor loves Rose? And not in a particularly, horrific... When I was Rose's age when I watched this, so I was just going, well, that's fine. And now I'm just this old lady going, well, she's only 19. Goodness sake, Christopher, that's disgusting. But he doesn't make... It's not a lascivious, it's like, companion love rather than, what it turns into, where you need to replicate yourself to go off with her forever. That was odd. Anyway, so that is an interesting thing. It's a Dalek recognising a love which the main characters might not have realised was there.
That is interesting, because I actually hadn't thought about it in that way. Too preoccupied was I with going, am I sure about this love thing? I'm not. Interesting. Whereas Izzy, of course, doesn't come with those preconceptions and that baggage. And as she said at the time, was just like, yeah, that's okay. And now goes, oh, that's slightly odd. Whereas, funny enough, at the time I was like, I don't know about Doctor and love and stuff like that. And now I sort of go, I'm sort of slightly reconciled to that. But actually, yeah, then there's the age thing. It's funny the journeys we go on. But it's good to change your mind and perspectives over time. But that perspective is not one I'd thought of, and certainly was not one of my reasons. So I sort of get 1 point if I'm lucky. Yeah, well, I'm going to allow myself, because it's not going to affect the result or the official. So, 1 point for me, 4 points to Izzy. Izzy has wiped the floor with me. What a tonic. I haven't spoken to Izzy in ages, and I absolutely loved the energy and quirkiness and witticism that she brought to that, and the phrase "let's fangle it out," and her brilliant perspectives, and and she chose stuff that I would never have chosen, and that's again the virtue of bringing somebody else in and going, what's your take on Doctor Who? And it's a reminder that I think this whole thing is a reminder that you can have your take on why you love a story, and somebody else's take might be absolutely and completely different, and I think that's worth remembering, so that actually then when somebody doesn't like something you like, you just go, well, that's okay, because they might even like different things about ones we both like. let's find out a bit more about Iszi, who has really put a spring in my step this evening, watching quite a grim in many places episode of Doctor Who, by bringing her fiercely comic imagination and sort of zany-minded approach. Let's see what she's up to.
Well, thank you very much. That was my episode. I do hope you enjoy it, because really, this is like a grown-up, proper themes. How can a man be so good and yet so evil at the same time? What does war and genocide do to a person? It turns them into the thing they hate. Oh, so good. So, if you want to find out more about me, please go to Iszi.com. And I know you're a nerd, so you do like dinosaurs, because you're a human being who wouldn't like dinosaurs. Go to terriblelizards.co.uk, find out about that. I do lots of stuff on the internet, so you should do that. And also, if you know any short people, it's a really good book. It really is. It's like, look how thick it is, and it's worth it. You should buy it. Be good. But I've been Iszi Lawrence, and I do hope that you have a lovely life. Yes, many lives throughout time and space.
That was the unstoppable Letty Peg that she was, for those, because Iszi has sent me a video. So she was advertising Iszi.com, ISZI.com, and Terrible Lizards, and her book, The Unstoppable Letty Peg. But she was doing that through visual references, which will be great on the YouTube video of this, which, if you can see me, that's what this is. Hello. If you can't, I haven't put that together yet, and you're listening to the much easier to edit and put together podcast, which has denied you seeing Iszi with her brilliant hair and her not very subtle visual plugs for her various things. So great, check her out. I can't see how you wouldn't want to after her joyous and joyful contribution to this, which has made my 42 minutes in the presence of Dalek and the brilliant Christopher Eccleston and the fabulous Billy Piper and the incomparable Rob Shearman definitely has made it a happy time and a happy place. And I hope it has for you too. And let's all get together in this museum of joy and see what other relics we can pick over next time. But until then, thanks very much for watching. My name's Toby, and good night. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, presented by me, Toby Haydock, and with special guest Iszi Lawrence, who you can find, as she said, at Iszi.com, ISZI.com, and on Twitter at Iszi_Lawrence. I'd like to thank patrons who include Mark Aldridge, Kit Allen, Sebastian April, Tilt Oriza, Simon Ash, Richard Alt, Martin Bellum, James Blackett, Robin Bland, Kyle Bors, David Brody, Nigel Bromley, Hugh Buchtman, Anthony Carroll, Phil Chapman, Susan Christian, Steve Churchill, Charles Coppin, Paul Colnaghy, Paul Cornell, Peter Crocker, Dave Curran, Matt Dale, Rob Dawson, Robert Davis, Tim Dickinson, Paul Dykes, Andrew East, David Gillespie, Charles Gears, Lisa Gledhill, Robin Groan, Paul J. Guest, and Susan Harrison. The music for this podcast is by Dave Gates. I can't emphasise enough how grateful I am to everybody on that list, and more the people who've gone to patreon.com/Toby Haydock and signed up for as little as £3 a month, and you even get 10% off that if you do a year in advance, and you get exclusive material, early releases, some other forms of access, and also even a badge depending on your tier. You can also go to kofi.com/Toby Haydock and do a one-off payment if a monthly commitment is not your thing. But of course, I understand that times are tough, and just listening to these, well, gives me a reason for doing them. And I'm grateful to everybody out there who supports these podcasts just by being there. But I'll tell you what costs you nothing. You could review and rate these 5 stars, please, if you can, because that really helps to tickle my algorithms, and they could do with a little bit of a tickle. And that can be done at whatever outlet you receive your podcasts from. So go on, get tickly. You can follow these podcasts on at Haydoke Podcasts. They have their own Twitter feed. I have a website, www.tobyhaydoke.com, that has a news and blog and all sorts of other things. And I've got my own personal Twitter, which is at Toby Haydoke. That's not just Doctor Who related. It's all to do with the comedy stuff that I do as well, which you might be interested in. I mean, you also might not, and that's perfectly understandable.